At the beginning of the drama, we are introduced to the main lead, Emma. Her husband, James, is trying to romance her, but Emma does not respond at all. She is lost in her thoughts, remembering how, despite being married to James for a long time, he had taken his girlfriend, Amy, with him to their son's awards ceremony. We are then shown a scene where Emma is standing outside the door, holding a cake, while Amy and James celebrate the ceremony with their child inside. Seeing this, Emma feels deeply hurt but says nothing. She tries to call her husband, but James disconnects the call, saying it is a useless call and not worth answering. Emma, feeling heartbroken, quietly walks away. In the present, James asks Emma why she is not responding to him. Emma replies that she is not feeling well and, anyway, she wants a divorce. James hands her his card and tells her that if she is unwell, she should get treatment instead of making excuses for divorce. Saying this, he leaves the room. Emma follows him and firmly says, "I am telling you the truth. I am not joking. I really want a divorce." "Anyway, you have your secretary, Amy, right?" At that moment, Amy arrives and calls out James's name. Seeing both of them together, she apologizes, saying she did not mean to disturb them. Emma responds, "No, you did not disturb us at all. In fact, you came at the right time." James dismisses Emma, saying she has lost her mind, and starts walking away with Amy. Emma feels deeply hurt. In the next scene, Emma is serving food to her son, Vicky, when Amy appears. Vicky excitedly runs to her and says, "Auntie, I like you very much. Please come and eat with me." Amy gently responds, "If I stay here, where will your mama go?" Vicky replies, "That doesn't matter to me. I enjoy speaking French with you." He then pulls Amy's arm and brings her to the table. While speaking in French, Vicky tells Amy that he does not like his mother at all. Emma, lost in thought, realizes that Vicky and his father often switch to French when they do not want her to understand something. Sensing Emma's silence, Amy comments, "You should also learn French so that you can communicate with your son." Vicky adds, "My mama doesn't study that much. She only went to primary school and just stays at home taking care of us. That's why I like you more." Suddenly, Amy sneezes. James quickly puts his coat on her, and Vicky hands her a glass of water. Emma remembers that once, when she had sneezed, Vicky angrily told her, "Mama, you will give me your infection." James had also told her to wear a mask. Remembering this, Emma feels deeply hurt. She then turns to James and reminds him, "I asked you to sign the divorce papers." Vicky reacts, "Mama wants a divorce? Dad, just give her the divorce so we can bring Auntie Amy to our house." James coldly responds, "Whether she stays here or not, it doesn't matter to me." He then leaves with Amy. On the way, Amy asks James, "Does Emma really want a divorce?" James smirks and replies, "Even if I give her a divorce as a gift, where will she go? She has nowhere else to live. Besides, I've given her a luxurious life. She can't leave it behind." Meanwhile, Emma instructs the maid to sell all of her belongings, saying, "I don't need them anymore." She looks at the pile of branded items James had bought for her, gets dressed elegantly, and says, "Today is the first day of my freedom." With that, she starts her car and drives away. In the next scene, James and Vicky are sitting at the dining table with James's mother. James's mother scolds the maid, saying, "What kind of food have you cooked? You don't know how to cook at all." The maid apologizes, explaining, "Miss Emma always cooks the food. I don't have much experience, so I did my best." Their pet dog, which had also refused to eat, is sitting nearby. The maid informs them, even the dog has not eaten anything. He only eats food from Miss Emma's hand. Frustrated, James and Vicky go looking for Emma, but her bedroom is empty. Vicky turns to James and says, "Call the food he makes." James dials the number, but Emma's phone is switched off. Meanwhile, Emma arrives at her friend Ava's house. Ava tells Emma, "Your husband is a terrible person. He never appreciated you. You sacrificed your career for your son and your husband, and he doesn't even recognize how talented you are." Emma replies, "He thinks I don't understand translation, which is why he speaks in code words in front of me and uses different languages." Ava points toward Emma's trophies and says, "You achieved the top position in translation at Beijing University." Emma looks at her trophy and recalls receiving an award from the International Federation of Translators. She then tells Ava, "I want to resume my career as a translator." I want to continue with it, Ava responds. That's great. Mr. Henry will be a great help to you. But you'll have to meet him personally. He is a good person, and he will agree soon. Emma nods. All right, I will meet him. Meanwhile, Mr. Henry is shown in an office meeting when his phone rings. He excuses himself and steps out to take the call. The next day, we see a restaurant where James and Amy are sitting together. Amy tells him, Vicky wants me to become his aunt. When are you taking me to your house? James coldly replies, don't even think about it. Amy sighs, all right, I understand. I think you need some space. Take your time. Just then, James notices Emma entering the restaurant. She is wearing a red dress and looks stunning. Seeing her, James smirks and thinks to himself, Emma, you couldn't live without me, could you? You came here to meet me. But to his surprise, Emma walks past him and sits at Mr. Henry's table. She apologizes, I'm sorry I'm a little late. Mr. Henry smiles, that's all right. I just arrived as well. James watches them angrily and starts to get up, but Amy grabs his hand and stops him. She sneers, I had no idea. It hasn't even been long since she left you, and she has already started seducing other men. Meanwhile, Mr. Henry looks at Emma's degrees and says, you are very talented. Our department is in great need of people like you. Just then, a waitress brings a cake to their table. Emma smiles and says, today is your birthday. I'm sorry I didn't bring a gift for you, Mr. Henry, in his heart. Thanks, seeing you after such a long time is the best birthday gift for me. He then tells her, I heard that you play music very well. Can you play a song for me? Emma agrees, takes her place at the piano, and starts playing beautifully. And James, unable to control himself, storms over, grabs her arm, and pulls her up. He angrily says, so, you're divorcing me because of this man? James continues, do you remember how you used to seduce me by playing the piano? Emma slaps him across the face and firmly says, stop blaming me. She turns to leave, but James grabs her arm again and says, come home with me. Emma picks up a glass of water and throws it on his face. Mr. Henry steps in and tells James, please leave. Afterward, Mr. Henry asks Emma, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Emma shakes her head, no, tonight I want to spend some time alone. Mr. Henry then gets lost in a flashback. In his memory, he is a young college boy, being teased by some girls. They mock him, saying, you're the son of poor parents. How can you even think of doing a job like this? Emma appears and scolds them, anyone can do this work. You should learn how to speak respectfully to people. Saying this, she walks away, but Mr. Henry never forgets her face, as she was the one who had stood up for him. Back in the present, Mr. Henry picks up his umbrella and prepares to leave. Before going, he tells Emma, I want to work with you on new projects. I hope you'll give me your full time. Emma smiles and replies, I am completely ready for this. In the next scene, James arrives home, and the maid informs him, sir, your son has a high fever. James rushes to Vicky and tries to call Emma, but her phone is switched off. He then takes the maid's phone and calls her. James asks Emma about the medicine. She inquires, did Vicky eat any ice cream? The maid hesitates and then says, today, Miss Amy gave him ice cream. Emma instructs James on which medicine to give. As soon as Vicky takes it, he starts feeling a little better. However, even in his weakened state, he keeps calling for his mother. James sighs and finally says, come home to see Vicky, and I will sign the divorce papers. James quickly goes and opens the door, but Amy is standing there. She has come to talk to him about a party. He invites her inside. Just then, Emma arrives with soup for Vicky. Seeing him, she says, drink this soup. Your stomachache will go away completely. However, Vicky glares at her and says, what are you doing here? You shouldn't have come. Saying this, he knocks the soup from her hands and yells, go away from me. I don't need you at all. Emma, hurt and angry, storms out. James tries to stop her, but she says firmly, just sign the divorce papers. James grabs her arm and takes her to the dressing room. He gestures toward her belongings and says, look, all the branded things are here for you. What more do you need? I want you back in my life. Emma shakes her head. I will never come back. I have a lot of work to do now. James scoffs, you're just a housewife and nothing else. You have no talent. What will you even do without me? Then, he starts forcing Emma to stay. I won't let you leave, he says. At that moment, Amy walks into the room, wearing a short dress. Emma sees her and, without hesitation, slaps James across the face. You called her here again today? Emma yells. You want to insult me on purpose, James defends himself. She just came for work, Emma glares at him. If you have so much pride, then sign the divorce papers. I want to leave, furious, James grabs the papers and signs them. Emma turns to leave. Amy follows behind her, holding Emma's lunchbox. Amy smirks and says, "Take your box with you. You're forgetting your things. If you want to leave, then leave completely." She then flashes her ring at Emma and taunts. "James and I are getting engaged soon. After that, we'll get married. That's why you need to leave his life completely," Emma simply says. "Alright," takes the lunchbox, and throws it in the dustbin before walking away. In the next scene, an event is taking place where translators have been invited. Amy arrives with James and excitedly tells him, "The director is going to select me for the translation job. We're definitely getting this contract, it's a multinational company." Then, the director enters. Amy extends her hand to introduce herself, but the director looks at her and says, "We didn't call you. We invited someone else." Just then, Emma enters with her assistant. Amy stares at her in disbelief. She's just a housewife. She can't even speak properly. How can she know a foreign language? James grabs Emma's arm and demands, "What are you doing here?" Emma looks him in the eye and says, "I'm here to do something you could never imagine." James snaps, "You misbehaved with Amy. Apologize to her." Emma smirks. "We're divorced now. You can't control me anymore." "I will not apologize to her." Saying this, she pushes James aside and walks to her seat. Amy notices the chair Emma is sitting in and gasps. "That's not an ordinary seat. If the director of translators comes, he'll throw you out." Emma calmly replies, "You should only worry about yourself. You don't need to worry about me, Amy. And who gave you the right to sit here?" Just then, Mr. Henry enters and says, "I did." Amy glares at him and sneers, "Oh, I knew it. Emma must have seduced you, that's why she's sitting there. Otherwise, she's just a housewife with no skills." Another girl joins Amy, and they start mocking Emma. James also confronts Mr. Henry and asks, "Who are you to get so close to my wife?" At that moment, Mr. Henry's secretary arrives and hands him some documents. James is shocked to realize who Mr. Henry really is. Mr. Henry turns to Emma and says, "Best of luck. You need to complete your preparations." James, now fuming, sits down beside Amy. Amy tries to calm him and says, "In a short while, the foreign delegation will arrive. Just wait and see how Emma will be humiliated in front of everyone." Just then, an Arab guest arrives with his wife. Amy rushes to greet them and starts speaking in English. James interrupts angrily, "Didn't I send you the documents earlier? Arabic guests are coming today. You were supposed to speak in Arabic." Amy stammers, "I was a little confused, so I didn't read the papers properly." Mr. Sheikh frowns and says, "You cannot insult us by speaking in English. You must speak in our language. We specifically requested a translator." At that moment, Emma enters with Mr. Henry. She greets the guests and starts speaking fluently in Arabic. The guests smile, visibly pleased. Amy clenches her fists in anger. "It looks like you came well prepared," she sneers. Emma smiles confidently. "I don't need preparation. I'm already an expert in these things." Mr. Henry then welcomes the guests warmly. James, still fuming, mutters, "He's not ready. He was just looking at her and thinking, Emma, you have a lot of talent, and I was not aware of this before. I wonder what other secrets you have hidden." In the next scene, Emma is shown preparing for translation, but Amy comes and sits beside her, trying to distract her by talking about irrelevant things. However, Emma does not respond. Amy says, "You know, James loves me a lot, and very soon, we are going to get married. He doesn't love you at all anymore. Even Vicky put this good luck band on my hand because I needed it the most today." Amy then shows her the good luck band, and Emma remembers that she had tied the same band on Vicky's hand when he had to go for his exams. But Emma still does not feel bad. She tells Amy, "Look, you cannot have children in the future, so now you have to take care of Vicky. Now that you have a child, enjoy it to the fullest." Saying this, she puts on her headphones and gets ready for work. Meanwhile, James and Mr. Henry are sitting together. James confidently says, "Just watch how well we translate. Your team will lose." Mr. Henry replies, "You cannot judge any work before it is done." Then, Mr. James is invited to give his speech, which Amy has to translate. Amy performs well and earns a lot of points. Emma is also translating well, but suddenly, her microphone stops working. A flashback shows that Amy had spilled water on her mic earlier, causing it to malfunction. Thinking quickly, Emma grabs another microphone, goes on stage, and continues translating. Seeing this, Mr. Sheikh is very impressed. He starts clapping, followed by the rest of the audience, who appreciate Emma's efforts. Mr. Sheikh offers her new projects, saying, "We can continue working together because we will not have any language barriers." Amy, furious at Emma's success, steps in and says, she doesn't have any certifications. Everything she did was based on fake recordings. Mr. Sheikh looks at Emma and asks, is she telling the truth? Emma has a flashback where she remembers James proposing to her with a ring. She had told him, "I haven't even completed my graduation yet." James had replied, "I want to marry you. Your education doesn't matter to me." Hearing this, Emma becomes emotional. James, looking at her now, says, "Of course, you are my ex-wife, but I cannot help you in this matter. We cannot hide the truth from people." Emma, hurt, replies, "Yes, I admit I don't have a certificate, but I have proof of everything I've achieved. I have worked hard for my degrees." Amy seizes this moment and says, "See." She admitted it herself, but Mr. Henry intervenes, who says she doesn't have a degree. He takes a document from his pocket and reveals Emma's degree from an international university. Everyone is shocked. James, holding the degree, looks at Emma and asks, "When did you achieve all this?" He then says, "You were always with me. I know you better than anyone. You couldn't have achieved this." Emma is deeply hurt by his words. She remembers how she used to care for Vicky and work late nights on her laptop. Looking at James, she says, "I have spent many years with you." Amy snatches the degree from James's hand and scoffs, "This is the degree you're so proud of?" Saying this, she throws the paper and continues, "This is just a piece of paper. The international team will be here soon. You should leave before they arrive, or you'll be humiliated in front of everyone." Meanwhile, the international team arrives. Amy quickly calls her senior, hoping to get more information against Emma. But to her surprise, the senior mentions Emma's name. Amy is shocked but ignores it. James also tells Emma to leave, but Mr. Henry stands in front of her and says, "No one can force Emma to leave." Amy tries to persuade Mr. Sheikh to remove Emma, but at that moment, the foreign team enters. Amy eagerly greets them, but they ignore her. Instead, they walk directly toward Emma and greet her warmly. One of them says, "We have come here to meet Miss Emma." Amy, confused, replies, "I thought you were here to meet me." They respond, "You always ranked low in the university and never achieved any position. If we hadn't helped you, you wouldn't even have this degree today." They then praise Emma and start sharing details about her academic achievements with the audience. James is stunned. The team hands some documents to Emma, saying, "These are the papers you requested us to prepare." Emma hands the papers to Mr. Sheikh and confidently says, "I'm sure our contract will be a great success." Mr. Sheikh wishes her good luck and accepts the documents. In the next scene, Emma and Mr. Henry step outside. Mr. Henry thanks her, saying, "I got today's contract only because of you." Emma smiles and replies, "It's okay, you don't need to thank me. You also played a big role in this." Then she adds, "But if you really want to thank me, you'll have to give me a promotion." Mr. Henry moves closer to Emma. He tells her, "Whatever kind of promotion you ask for, I will give it to you." Seeing both of them so close, James feels very bad. Emma steps back and says, "I was just joking with you." Then she adds, "Now we have other projects to work on." Mr. Henry hears this and leaves. Then James approaches Emma and says, "You should join my company. We both will work together very well." Emma replies, "The company is not mine, but yours, so you should handle it alone." James then says, "You don't need to be so close to Mr. Henry." Emma responds, "That has nothing to do with you because I have no relation with you anymore." James tells her, "You stayed with me for so many years. I even hired maids to help you with all your work. Despite that, you still don't want to come back into my life? What is your problem? I think you will regret this later." Emma firmly replies, "Don't worry, I will not regret it at all. And anyway, that was not a house, it was a jail." James gets very angry upon hearing this. He tells her, "Then I will take you back to that jail again." Just then, Mr. Henry arrives. He punches James in the face and pushes him aside. James, in shock, says, "Now I understand. This is the reason you have been asking for a divorce again and again." Emma becomes furious, but Mr. Henry calms her down and tells her to go sit in the car. Emma agrees and leaves. Mr. Henry then turns to James and says, "Listen, she was your ex-wife, and she does not want to be with you anymore. So next time, if you try to force her, no one will be worse than me. The next day, a party is shown where Emma is celebrating with her colleagues who have come from foreign countries. Especially to meet her, Emma says, "I am very grateful to all of you for coming here just for me." One of them replies, "No, we should be the ones thanking you. Because of you, we have a good position today." He then adds, "There is still a vacant seat for you in our institute abroad. We want you to join us." Emma replies, "Thank you very much for your offer, but I still have a lot of work to do here. Once I finish everything, I will come there." They smile and say, "Okay, by the time you complete your work, we think Mr. Henry will have found a girlfriend." Mr. Henry smiles and replies, "It is possible that I have already found my girlfriend." Then, all of them start making plans, saying, Miss Emma is single now, so she should get closer to Mr. Henry. Everyone starts drinking, and Emma gets drunk in a short time. Her colleagues say to Mr. Henry, "We are feeling very sleepy and have important work tomorrow, so we need to leave. You take care of Miss Emma." Saying this, they leave. Mr. Henry smiles as they walk away. He then tries to wake Emma up and says, "Let's go home," but Emma suddenly hugs him and holds him close. Mr. Henry feels confused but thinks to himself, "Emma, I cannot do this to you." He gently tries to wake her up again. Emma, still drunk, says, "You think I'm a fool, don't you? Because I wasted so many years of my marriage on my husband and my child." Mr. Henry replies, "You are not a fool at all. In fact, you are very intelligent. I also want to tell you that I like you very much." But as he looks at Emma, he realizes that she has fallen into a deep sleep. He smiles and thinks to himself, "I have waited for you for the past 10 years. Now, I will wait for another 10 years until you say yes yourself." On the other hand, we see James, who returns home after drinking heavily. Vicky is sitting and waiting for him. Vicky asks, "Dad, why didn't Mom come with you? I saw her on TV, and she looked really nice." James tells him, "Son, your mother has some important work right now, but she will come back soon." Vicky then shows some books to his father and says, "Mom wrote all these books. I want to learn languages from them. You should call her back home quickly." Just then, James's mother enters the room and says, "Your mother has run away with another man. She will never come back here." James feels terrible hearing this and stops his mother. He then tries to explain to Vicky, "Son, I will definitely bring your mom back." But his mother interrupts and says, "Why are you lying to the child? You are both divorced now, so you should stop thinking about bringing her back." James sternly tells his mother, "Please don't say such things in front of the child." Then, he takes Vicky and leaves the room. Meanwhile, Amy enters and greets James's mother. James's mother sighs and says, "I am very worried because Vicky needs proper care. He is still young and cannot live without his mother. That's why I want you to stay with him." Amy assures her, "Don't worry, Auntie. I will take care of everything. You don't need to worry." In the next scene, we see Emma. As soon as she wakes up, her head is spinning. Then, Mr. Henry appears in front of her. She asks him, "Did I drink too much last night?" Mr. Henry replies, "Yes, you drank a lot last night." Emma asks, "I didn't say anything, did I?" Mr. Henry tells her, "You said that you like me a lot." Emma is very surprised to hear this. Then, Mr. Henry gives her a dress and says, "Change your clothes. I'll be waiting for you outside." In the next scene, as they are about to leave, a little girl named Mia runs up to Mr. Henry and calls him Baba. Emma is surprised and asks, "Mr. Henry, do you have a daughter?" Mr. Henry replies, "No, we brought her from the orphanage, and since then, she calls me her uncle." Mia excitedly tells Emma, "Auntie, I watched your entire program on TV, and I really like you. I think you should be my aunt." At that moment, we also see the entry of Mr. Henry's mother. As soon as she sees Emma, she smiles and says, "I'm so happy to see you with Henry." She then tells her assistant to bring some gifts for her future daughter-in-law. Emma gets very nervous and quickly says, No, Auntie, there's nothing like that. You must have misunderstood." But Henry's mother insists, "There's no misunderstanding," and forcefully gives her the gifts. Amy, who was also present there, secretly clicks pictures of them. In the next scene, we see Mr. James talking to his assistant. His assistant says, "Your wife still hasn't agreed." Mr. James confidently replies, "She will agree in a few days." The assistant advises, "To win over a woman, you have to give her gold jewelry." Mr. James says, "Okay, then place the order." Just then, Vicky comes in and asks, "Dad, Mama will come back, right?" Mr. James reassures him, "Yes, she will definitely come back. But then, Amy walks in and says she will never come back. She then shows Mr. James some pictures on her phone. As soon as Vicky sees them, he notices Mia with Emma and says, "It looks like Mama has found another child. Now, she will never make me her son again." Saying this, he runs away. Mr. James angrily scolds Amy and says, "You shouldn't have taken such pictures. Get out of here." Amy tries to explain, but he refuses to listen. Meanwhile, we see Vicky in his room, having scattered all his books. "I won't study anymore," he shouts. Amy gently tells him, "Don't worry, I will teach you." On the other side, Mr. Henry's mother takes Emma to a mall and buys a lot of things for her. Emma says, "Auntie, you misunderstood. Henry and I are just best friends." Henry's mother apologizes, "I'm sorry. I must have been mistaken, but I still want you to stay with Henry. Look at how lonely Mia is. She has trouble doing her homework." Then, Ava also says, "Yes, I'm struggling with my work too." Emma smiles and says, "All right, I'll help him study." In the next scene, we see Emma teaching Mia, while Mr. Henry brings fruits for her. Meanwhile, poor Vicky is struggling because Amy has been making him study for a long time without giving him anything to eat. Vicky complains, "Mom never did this to me. She always let me take breaks." But Amy insists, "Studying is very important for you, so keep studying quietly." Then, Mr. James arrives. Seeing Vicky study so hard, he thanks Amy. "Thank you so much, Amy. You are working really hard on my son," he says. Amy replies, "I'm teaching him a foreign language so that he can achieve a top rank." Vicky thinks to himself, "Auntie lies so much." Vicky's eyes start hurting, and he rubs them repeatedly. Mr. James tells his assistant, "Cancel all my meetings for tomorrow. I need to take Vicky for a checkup." The assistant hesitates, but the meetings are very important. Amy interrupts, "Don't worry, I will take him for his checkup. You don't need to worry." In the next scene, Amy takes Vicky to school. Mr. James's mother is also there. Amy tells Vicky, "You have to do well on your test so you can come in first place." His grandmother proudly adds, "My grandson is very intelligent." At that moment, Emma arrives with Mia. As soon as Vicky sees them together, he feels very hurt. Amy scoffs, "Oh, so you've adopted a girl now? That means you don't care about your own son." James's mother also scolds Emma, saying, "You don't care about your son at all, and we don't care about you either." Emma, holding Mia's hand, silently walks away. Later, during the exam, Vicky thinks to himself, "I have to do my best so Mama will come back to me." After some time, we see the result day. Amy and James are there with Vicky, while Emma arrives with Mia. After a while, the results are announced, and it is revealed that Vicky secured first place. James's mother is overjoyed. She tells Amy, "You are amazing. Because of you, our son got first place." James also thanks her, but Vicky's eyes are hurting badly, and he keeps rubbing them. Emma asks James, "Why didn't you get his checkup done?" Amy immediately interrupts, "You're divorced. This is none of your business." Then, Vicky is called on stage to receive his award, but he suddenly starts crying because of the pain in his eyes. James quickly picks him up and rushes him to the hospital. Emma also follows them, but James's mother scolds her harshly. She says that all this has happened only because of you. Emma looks at James and says, "I told you earlier that his checkup needed to be done." Saying this, she slaps him hard across the face. Just then, Amy arrives. She says, "Please, Mr. James, forgive me. I was so busy making him study that I forgot to get him checked up." Then the doctor comes out and informs them, his eyes will need to be operated on, and after that, he will improve a little. However, the next 24 hours are critical, and he needs a lot of care. After Vicky's surgery, he is brought out. Emma rushes toward him, but her mother-in-law pushes her away. Mr. Henry steps forward and comforts Emma. "Don't worry," he tells her. "Vicky will be fine very soon." In the next scene, we see Vicky repeatedly calling for his mother, but Emma does not have the courage to go near him. Amy tells everyone to leave, saying, "I will take care of Vicky." However, Mr. James sends them away and stays with Vicky himself. On the other side, Emma takes care of Vicky the whole night. She cooks food for him, adjusts his foredrip, and watches over him. She even changes his bandages, but since Vicky is blindfolded, he does not know that his mother is the one caring for him. In the next scene, Amy visits Vicky. As soon as Mr. James wakes up, he sees Amy sitting beside Vicky. Amy says, "I have been taking care of him all night." James thanks her and leaves. Later, Amy starts feeding Vicky. The moment he tastes the food, he realizes that it was made by his mother. "Did my mom come to see me?" he asks. Amy quickly responds, "No, your mom didn't come to meet you at all." On the other side, Emma, exhausted from staying awake all night, starts feeling unwell. Mr. Henry notices this and tells her, "You should take care of yourself too." Emma sighs and replies, "He is my son. No matter how much I try, I cannot stay away from him. I have been taking care of him all night. If he doesn't receive proper care, he might lose his sight completely." "I won't be careless about this," Mr. Henry reassures her. "All right then, let's go and get you some fresh clothes." Emma then visits James' house. The maid is happy to see her and asks, "Who eats so many sweets?" The maid explains, "Amy ma'am gives all this food to Vicky." She also takes Emma to Vicky's room and tells her, "Amy ma'am makes Vicky study a lot. She teaches him for 15 hours a day." Vicky gets tired, and his eyes hurt, but Amy ma'am forces him to continue studying. Emma feels terrible upon hearing this. Meanwhile, Vicky tells Amy, "I want to go outside for a walk." Amy takes him out but then gets a phone call. She steps aside, leaving Vicky alone. Poor Vicky, unable to see, relies only on the sounds around him. Just then, Vicky hears a child calling out for his mother. He feels sad and says, "I wish my mom would come to me too." At that moment, Emma arrives and feeds Vicky, but she does not speak to him. After feeding him, she begins to walk away. Vicky quickly grabs her arm and asks, "You are my mom, right?" Amy intervenes and tells Vicky, "She is not your mom." Then she turns to Emma and says, "Do you think Vicky will come to your side? That will never happen. He considers me his mother now." Just then, Mr. James arrives. Looking at Emma, he says, "Thank you for coming to see Vicky." Emma firmly replies, "He is my son, and I will always take care of him. But I must tell you something, keep Amy away from him." Amy protests, "I have been taking care of Vicky all night. You can't ask me to leave." Emma calmly responds, "Actually, I was the one who stayed with Vicky all night." James is shocked to hear this. Amy quickly interrupts, "She is lying. I take great care of Vicky. I make him study and feed him too." Emma pulls out some documents from her bag. She forces Vicky to study for 15 hours a day, Emma says. Even though she knows his eyes are weak, she still makes him study excessively. Amy defends herself. "That's not true. I just wanted him to get the first position in his class." Emma then shows James a photo of their refrigerator, which is filled with sweets. She knows that Vicky shouldn't eat so many sweets, Emma says. Yet, she deliberately feeds him junk food. "It's almost as if she's trying to harm our child." Amy snaps back, "That's a lie. You are deliberately blaming me." She turns to Vicky and says, "Tell them, Vicky. I take great care of you, don't I? I love you too." But suddenly, Vicky faints. James quickly catches him and rushes him into a room. In the next scene, Emma is taking care of Vicky. Then she receives a phone call from her assistant. "Your residence in a foreign country has been arranged. You need to move quickly," he tells her. Emma replies, "Some things are still pending. I will move in a few days." He informs her, "We have mailed some documents to you. Please check them." Emma is busy working on her laptop. James watches her from a distance and thinks to himself, "Emma is so talented. I never appreciated her. She managed both her home and work so well. I don't know why I treated her the way I did." Then he approaches her and says, "I want to talk to you." Emma responds coldly, "There's nothing left to talk about." James insists, "I just want to say sorry. I know I did a lot of wrong to you." Emma retorts, "What exactly are you apologizing for? You brought another woman into our child's life. Even my own child has started accepting her as his mother. And now, you want to say sorry to me?" She pauses and then says, "Anyway, I am leaving this place." James asks, "Where are you going?" Emma replies, "That is none of your business." Saying this, she pushes past him and leaves. Just then, Vicky calls out, "Mom." James quickly goes to his son. Vicky says, "Dad, I miss my mom so much. Please bring her back. I want my mom to take care of me." James gently assures him, "Okay, I will bring your mom back." Meanwhile, Emma sends her colleagues away and spends time with Mr. Henry. His mother then sends Mia to them, pretending that she needs to go abroad for treatment. However, in reality, she does this so that Mia can spend more time with both of them and help them grow closer. On the other hand, Vicky is missing his mother terribly. Amy comes to him and says, "I'm sorry. If you want your mom to come back, you have to help me." Vicky agrees. Emma and Ava are walking together when Vicky throws a toy toward them. Ava reaches out to catch it but almost falls. However, Vicky hesitates and does not push her. Then, shockingly, Amy steps in and pushes both of them down. Then Emma also comes and saves them. Amy accuses her, saying, "You tried to kill Vicky." Mia immediately responds, "Auntie, you are lying." James arrives at the scene, and Amy tells him, "Emma tried to kill your son. Send her to jail." But just then, Mr. Henry's mother arrives with her entire team and firmly states, "Who dares to send my daughter and daughter-in-law to jail?" She adds, "We will soon find out who is truly responsible for this." The security camera footage is checked. But Amy had already corrupted the recordings. However, a maid steps forward and informs them that there is another hidden camera. When that footage is reviewed, Amy's truth is exposed. Mr. Henry immediately instructs his assistant, "Catch her and take her away from here." Amy screams and resists, but no one listens to her. Meanwhile, James and Vicky try to talk to Emma. James pleads, "Please come back into our lives. No one can love Vicky as much as you do." But Emma firmly replies, "I will never come back into your life." Just then, Mr. Henry steps forward, freeing Emma's arm, and says, "You cannot force her. If she does not want to stay with you, you must let her go." James, frustrated, says, "You have no right to interfere in my life." Mr. Henry calmly responds, "I have known her for 10 years. He then takes Emma with him. Emma, confused, asks, "How do you know me for 10 years? Mr. Henry shows her his ID, and Emma suddenly remembers the moment, 10 years ago, when she had helped him. Henry explains, "After that, I went abroad for my studies, but I always loved you. I always thought that whenever I returned, I would marry you." Saying this, he confesses his feelings. Emma is completely shocked. In the next scene, we see James and Vicky sitting together, looking sad. Vicky says, "Dad, please bring Mom back. I miss her so much." James sighs and replies, "I have hurt her deeply. I don't think she will ever forgive me." Vicky insists, "If you sincerely apologize, she will definitely forgive you." Just then, the maid approaches them and says, "Even our dog is very sad because of Miss Emma. She used to talk to him a lot." A flashback shows how James never made time for Emma, and Vicky often ignored her. In those lonely moments, she found comfort in the dog. Realizing their mistakes, James and Vicky feel even more regretful. The maid then says, "Miss Emma's birthday is coming up. You should surprise her. I'm sure she will come back because she took care of Vicky even when he was sick." Vicky becomes excited after hearing this. On the other side, we see Mr. Henry throwing a birthday party for Emma. Mia wishes her a happy birthday, and the whole family is present. Just then, James and Vicky arrive with a cake. James grabs Emma's arm and demands, "You are my family. Why are you celebrating with others?" Emma firmly replies, "I have told you many times, I will not come back." Vicky rushes to her, trying to stop her. But Emma tells him, "Son, you must stay with your father. Uncle and I are divorced." Although she speaks firmly, she is deeply hurt. Later, Emma receives a phone call informing her that her admission for higher studies has been confirmed. Hearing this, she feels overjoyed. Emma is seen giving a speech on stage. The audience watches in admiration, whispering, "Wow. She is so intelligent." James and Vicky arrive at the event. James approaches Emma and says, "We just came to appreciate you and wish you good luck. Wherever you go, be happy." Saying this, he turns and leaves. Then, Mr. Henry arrives with a bouquet of pink roses. He kneels before Emma and says, "I love you very much, and I always will." Meanwhile, Vicky turns to his father and asks, "Dad, why didn't you convince Mom to come back?" James responds, "She deserves to be where she is today." At that moment, Mr. Henry takes out a ring and proposes to Emma. Just then, James arrives one last time, hoping for another chance. But now, it is too late. With this, our drama comes to an emotional end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.